The body is very adaptable and very resilient. So when we're born, like for example, our bones have calcium in there, it's got magnesium, phosphorus, copper, etc. And when you're not getting them in the diet every single day, your body will pull from reserves. And these reserves are typically our bones, which is why in Taoism they call it our Jing, right? It's like
Really?
primordial essence. Well, you're taking away from that kind of reservoir of nourishment, which is your bone.
John, thank you so much for joining us. You're really in the deep depths of any, I guess, nutritional knowledge that there is, but especially you're focusing on micronutrition, meaning vitamins as well as minerals.
Yeah.
So would you mind if we talk today about minerals? Because I think that's a good place to start. And many people have a lot of questions of like, what are actually the issues with that and what to look out for?
Okay.
Awesome. So minerals, how did you get into this? Like, how did you actually get so knowledgeable about such an unusual topic?
I first got into minerals many years ago. I went to a lecture first and I heard a guy talk about how you can use minerals to help with your health. And it kind of went in one ear and out the other.
Yeah.
Then the more I kind of learned a bit more about nutrition in general and then spent some time learning about herbalism. And then I realized that herbs had limited value if you didn't have your nutritional standpoint more in balance. Really.
So there are not enough minerals in herbs themselves?
That's not what I was finding. So my teacher would tell us that, like, sure, you may need certain herbs to help relax your muscles, but it's not going to fix a magnesium deficiency, and you should still take magnesium as well.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, okay. So you came that route.
Yeah. So after I learned a little bit about nutrition and the value of minerals, started learning about like what are called the RDIs, or the recommended daily intakes.
Right. So something that you see on like, I don't know, like, your milk bottle and says how much calcium you should take.
Says, yeah, exactly. 30% calcium on your milk. And you go, hey, that means I need 3 cups of milk to get my calcium.
Right.
That's what the government kind of outlined by the Institute of Medicine, so that you can get the nutrients that you need day to day in a simplified way. My interest was that we require these nutrients so that we can perform biological functions, and without them, our bodies really can't perform optimally. And where this kind of becomes relevant is when you have a chronic health condition, because when you have low nutrient intake, it's very hard to regenerate your body, let alone get on day to day without feeling pain, tired, brain fog, etc.
Yeah. So who sets actually the levels that are recommended? Like, so RDI stands for?
It's a recommended daily intake.
Right.
It's also called the recommended daily allowance. And it implies that like you're not allowed anymore.
Okay.
Right? But
it's not like that?
No, it should not be like that, because the actual definition is 98% of this nutrient that you need to prevent a nutritional deficiency disease, and not necessarily the amount of the nutrient that you need so that you can experience optimal health. So your vitamin C, for example, is like 90 milligrams. That's to prevent scurvy and your teeth from falling out. That's not to help prevent tumor growth or proper skin health.
Oh, so that level is the absolute minimum to not get sick.
That's it.
Oh, wow. They should really call that like minimum intake or something rather than recommended, something like that.
I
So,
agree.
yeah, right. Because the optimum, like to get vibrant health, the optimum level might be actually quite high, much higher.
Yeah, absolutely. And they have another one where they say if you get too much of the nutrient, then it can cause negative issues. And they call it the upper limit. So really the optimal is somewhere between the RDA and the upper limit. And finding that balance can be very individual, because some people need nutrients more than other people depending on their circumstance. And the other reason would be that we're all biologically unique.
Yeah.
So some people just genuinely require more nutrients than others. To think that we're all like a cookie and we're getting cookie cutter kind of healthcare or even nutritional care
They're all different cookies.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So what are typical minerals that you're talking about? Like what are the main ones that are out there?
Okay, well, there's the macro minerals, which are calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium. They're very simple. You need them in larger amounts. They're called macro minerals. And these are ones that you take in like gram quantities. So you need like 1,200 milligrams of calcium, for example, or 4,500 milligrams of potassium. And then there's the micronutrients, which are nutrients that you need in smaller amounts. But just because you need less of them doesn't mean that they're of any less importance.
Right. Okay. So a bit misleading name, really.
Well, they're just micronutrients.
But they're just as important. You just need less of them, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
The trace amounts, they say. So
Yeah.
you think you need barely any, but that could be debated. And there's lots of science out there to say that you may need a little bit more, especially if you're sick.
Right. So then actually the recommended doses might actually move, up.
Even higher, absolutely.
Yeah, right. Okay. So, and what are these minerals actually needed for? Like, could you just point out a couple of major functions? I guess they're needed for everything, probably. But
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, typically we have enzymes that do things in the body, and proteins are which make up tissues and things like that. Minerals are required to do certain biological functions, you can say. So cells run on nutrients. They need sugars to create energy, but they need micronutrients to create energy with sugar. Right. So just as much as you need sugar, you need micronutrients to come with that sugar intake.
So it's like a tool set almost, like that. They need major fuel, but then they also need different tools to function. Something like that. I'm just thinking to sort of picture that.
Yeah, it's kind of like you need gasoline, for example, but you also need some oil to run a car.
I get it, yeah.
So you need some other stuff more than just fuel.
Yeah.
And that would be the perspective for nutrients that the cell requires. And the cell requires at least 16 vitamins, which you can get from your food, and they're around. Like most foods do contain vitamins, unless you're eating refined foods or something like that. Yeah. But even the government is now starting to add those back in because they realize their importance, and most people just aren't getting enough. So as far as minerals go, you cannot guarantee that you're getting them in your food. You find like calcium's a mineral that's found in dairy, and you could say, oh, dairy does contain calcium, but when it comes to like vegetables or something like that, it's less likely to be found in vegetables because minerals grow, well, they don't grow, but they're found in the earth in veins, kind of like the veins in chocolate ripple ice cream. There's some chocolate here, but there's
if
none
you're lucky,
over
you
here.
have a lot of those. Otherwise, you might not.
Yeah, sometimes you hit the jackpot, right?
Yeah, you're right. I like that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and this is why like we find gold mines in certain locations, or you find lithium in certain areas and not others.
Huh. So how do we actually know that we get enough?
Well, I prefer to test and not guess. Ideally, you would like to see objectively that you're getting enough. It's a good idea to think that I am getting enough. I eat a healthy diet, and that's that. But it's kind of like a guessing game at the end of the day. So I prefer to do a testing to kind of identify the actual tissue needs for these nutrients, or as biofeedback so that we can see where the body actually is rather than just assuming.
So how would you test that?
With a hair tissue mineral analysis.
You're right.
It's a good indicator of your tissue status. And for those that don't know, a tissue is basically a conglomerate of cells, right? So cells require minerals and vitamins, and cells put together make up tissues, and tissues make up proteins and your brain and your organs. And then your organs work together, make organ systems, and they make an organism, which is what we are, right? So at the very small level, you want to nourish the cell, but you got to see what the cell's made up of to really identify how much you need.
Right. And even though it's just on your head, you actually can sort of get an overview of where your whole body is like. Like it's a good representation.
Yeah, it's a reasonable representation, and it's safe and non-invasive. So rather than taking a chunk of your liver, as a liver biopsy or a skin biopsy, and you have scabs all over.
Oh, that actually does happen, right?
People do that.
Okay.
So
okay.
this is non-invasive. It doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
And, and it's very economical. You get a lot of information about it.
Yeah.
And especially when you see that each mineral has multiple functions in the body.
So how would I know? Well, so you probably say like as a maintenance thing, you should check that on a regular basis anyway.
Ideally, yeah. At minimum, I like to see minimum hair test twice pretty much a year.
Yeah.
So every 6 months.
Okay, so it's like going, I don't know, in Germany you go to the dentist every half a year to check your teeth. It's just what you do.
So really? Most people don't go that often.
Yeah, I would just think you might as well, because if you could get it wrong, then, it's not so good.
Of course.
So let's say like you're just an unusual person and you don't check your hair every half a year.
Yeah.
What would be the things that you would actually notice? Like, can you actually pin it down, or is it quite a vast? Well, if you don't get enough minerals, what would happen?
Well, the body is very adaptable and very resilient. So when we're born, like for example, our bones have calcium in there. It's got magnesium, phosphorus, copper, etc. And when you're not getting them in the diet every single day, your body will pull from reserves. And these reserves are typically our bones, which is why in Taoism they call it our jing, right? It's like
really
primordial essence. Well, then you're taking away from that kind of reservoir of nourishment, which is your bone. And the hair is a good representative because the cerebrospinal fluid flows and it comes up through and mixes with the blood around that area. So you get an idea of really what's in the cerebrospinal fluid.
Yeah, right.
So it's a decent representative for that reason.
Yeah, cool. Right. So, okay, so once we have used some of the minerals out of our bones, what would the body actually do? Would it actually decay in a sense, or would you just decline, or is that when you see? Well, what would you see?
Well, if you ask like most people that do like MRIs, for example, and they look at the spine, they'll say it's normal to see people with degenerative disc disease or bulging disc, degeneration in their spine or stenosis and things like that. They say it's normal. That's what it should look like. And as you get older, it goes down and down. My perspective is that's not actually true. The body regenerates. It's like a phenomenon.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it does. It's pretty brilliant, right?
Yeah.
You cut yourself and it heals.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like the body should do the same. And if you're always pulling away from this mineral bank, our bone, and not putting enough nutrients back in to restore that balance, what happens is you get degenerative disc disease or degenerative bones, osteoporosis, or things like that.
Right. So if you would look into things like Taoism, that's a study that has been going on for thousands of years, I guess, and observations, then there are actually certain ways you can live to really great ages without having those.
In Taoism they talk about extreme longevity, which is even some cases they talk about immortality.
Biblical ages.
It may be a pipe dream as far as all of that, but I don't know. Right. I think the future, I know Aubrey de Grey talks about the average person in the future could probably live to 1,000 years, which I think is, you must really love life.
Yeah, you do, right? Every now and then, I would think, every now and then you do need a reset and, just have a break and then come back. But but I get it. Like, certainly a few hundred years more would give you a better perspective, I guess,
At least the human potential should be at least 120. But I think they talk about the Hayflick limit, which is about 120, 140. And then maybe with epigenetics, you might be able to push it a bit more. Yeah. But I think 1,000 is a little extreme. That's just me.
Yeah. Yeah, but overall, I think this boundary, also this Hayflick limit, might have slowly moved up as people understand better what actually is possible when you support the body well. Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So When people find out that they have deficiencies of some sort, based on what the minimum should be in the body, because that's basically, well, we have the ration that we should take every day of a mineral, and then I guess we also have levels that the body should have. Is that how you would describe it, like when you test the body?
Yeah, so on a basic level, it's like basically a theory that you should have an intake, the RDA, each and every day. That doesn't take into account how much is actually present in your body. And that's why I was saying it's not necessarily optimal, but it helps prevent any short-term disease that's nutritionally based. I come from the field where I think that a lot of diseases are actually all mineral imbalances and nutritional deficiencies.
Yeah.
And when you have, for example, a thyroid condition and you have very low reverse T3, just for an example, you need selenium to convert T3 to RT3. So, or T4 to T3, and you need iodine to create T4, and T4 is 4 iodine molecules. So when you don't have these minerals, what happens is like your thyroid doesn't work properly, right? When you don't have enough sodium in your diet, your adrenal glands don't make aldosterone properly, and then your stress response goes right down, right? And you're not as resilient to these things anymore. And, a small, maybe just a small stressful situation may really throw you off kilter.
Yeah, that's something. Yeah.
So, in the long term, like they recommend about like 55 micrograms per day of selenium. But when you talk about ideal, you kind of want to aim for like 200 micrograms upwards to like 400 micrograms.
Yeah, right.
And this is just because when they did the RDA, they based it off glutathione, which is a selenium-dependent protein. And since then, we've identified 25 different proteins that are dependent on selenium. And for all of these to be working properly, you need to have adequate amount of selenium.
Right. Because what would happen otherwise?
Your health, your selenium's particularly used as an antioxidant, so it helps neutralize toxins in the body.
Right.
So if we live in a world that is increasingly being filled up with heavy metals like arsenic or mercury and things like that, these use up our selenium stores. So you want to make sure you have adequate amounts to help protect you from these things. If you live in Sydney and you walk to work, there's cars all around, that's going to increase other antioxidant nutrients as well, such as like vitamin C or vitamin E.
Right, that's fantastic. So if you look after that, how many minerals you have in yourself and that you keep up with the doses that really gives you that, at that moment you're actually way more resilient to many things that are thrown at you. So it's not all about detoxing your body, but actually also just getting the resilience off, like up so that you actually don't even have to detoxify as much.
Yeah, I ideally, like I believe that nutrients protect you from heavy metals, and that includes vitamins, but minerals as well. So the body, it's kind of known, the body's not stupid, right? It's intelligent, and it can choose what nutrients it wants to use and what nutrients it doesn't want to use. Now, the question comes, why does it pick up mercury? Why does it pick up arsenic, right? The body's smart. So the reason why is because it needs this nutrient to do a biological function that it wouldn't be able to do for another reason, because you're low on a nutrient mineral. So it takes, say, mercury or cadmium, because you're low in zinc, and it will use this to maintain this. Well,
it thinks it's a good thing.
Well, it is a good thing because it maintains your life right now, right? Like day to day, you want to make sure that you're still living. That's first priority. Yeah. Second is long-term living.
So it takes mercury and thinking this is the best thing I can do because I don't have any other option?
Yeah, I don't have selenium. I don't have zinc.
That's amazing.
I'm a vegetarian. I don't get zinc. So what do? Well, we got mercury here. It'll do the same thing, but at a reduced efficiency.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So you've seen many people and you've done a lot of hair analysis with them and see what the deficiencies are. So what are the main deficiencies that you see around the globe?
Well, one of the most common ones is magnesium. And that one, it's starting to become a little less common because so many people are taking magnesium.
Powder or something on the skin, by the way?
People do use transdermal magnesium, and they do foot soaks and baths and stuff, and it's almost everywhere. Even the markets here, we see it, magnesium bath salts and all this stuff. So like that one, it was a big problem, but it seems to be kind of
that's good.
Attention's been erased on that one.
But which one do you recommend, just quickly?
Magnesium.
Which one of the magnesiums? The one that you take internally, oral, or the one you put on the skin?
I prefer to do magnesium malate right now. So it's just a form of magnesium.
Did you take orally?
I do, yeah. Oh. Some people have digestive problems when they do take certain magnesiums. The one I don't recommend at all is magnesium oxide. That one is not the best ever.
Okay, good. So, and we do want a bit ever. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
If you really need to use it as a laxative, then maybe you can do that.
Yeah, okay.
It goes right out the other end. So, another nutrient that is commonly deficient in diets, especially, is potassium. And it's a weird one because you need a large amount of it, like 4,500 milligrams, so 4.5 grams.
What would you eat to get it?
Vegetables.
Vegetables?
Yeah. Who would think?
Yeah, exactly. I thought
vegetables,
talk about a superfood or something that you need to eat, but no.
It's a very nice source of it is coconut water, right?
Right.
And that's why a lot of people still go and get coconut water.
Yeah, right.
The thing with potassium is that like you can guarantee that it's in plants because the average farmer supplements the soil with nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium.
So no minerals at all.
I'll give you 3.
Right, okay, here you go. But,
doesn't matter if you need 60. We got 3 because that's what the plant needs, right? But what happens is these NPK fertilizers weren't really developed for optimal nutrition. They were actually developed after the World War, and the nitrogen and phosphate industries were used to make bombs, right? So after the war, they go, we got to sell it. We have all this, nitrates. So they found out that a plant only really needs 16 nutrients, but the most economical fertilizer is the NPK one. Right. And they sold it to farmers. And what happened is, instead of using the old school soil regeneration techniques that we used to do, which is basically starting a fire. We've grown with fire for a long time, and then we get stuck with this byproduct, which is called ash. And we throw the ash somewhere, right? Yeah. And that was fertilizer for the plants. Now we use NPK fertilizers, which other farmers all had to kind of use it as well because they couldn't produce food quickly enough like the other farmers could do. And what it does long term is it depletes the soil of the nutrients because you're no longer adding in ash from trees and things like that, which contains all the minerals. Okay. You only got 3.
Right. So we used to actually, similar to the body, the ground would have its reservoir, but it wouldn't need it too much because we would actually apply all the different minerals. Let's say, maybe the ash back then had all 60 minerals. Yeah. We did that. And so it would go all in our food. So we had enough then. And now we got away with that. We give them 3 and all the rest has to come out of the body, out of the ground. So what once the ground has no left, or does that not happen?
Minerals are created by the earth happenings, you can say, and they come from the sun as well. But typically we're just depleting the reservoir, which is our earth, and where we should be rejuvenating it, we're not really doing it. Where even we used to have floodplains, and you'd have big floods come by, and it would flood an area. Well, that would deliver nutrients all the way across, right?
Like the Nile Delta. I remember the pharaohs, they really liked that Nile Delta because it was really, really fertile, I guess, because of that reason, because it would constantly
disperse minerals around.
Yeah.
And now we dam up our waters, which we need in civilization, but it doesn't really do us justice when we're talking about ideal foods and growing nutrient-dense foods.
Yeah. So what happens if I go to the farmer's market then? People people like the idea, and I do too, go to to a local source. That's really good. That's good for the environment as well. But, of course, it's also fresh, and I'm sure you have some opinions about that, of freshness of food. But like just from the point of view of what actually goes into the plant, how do we know that enough is going into? Like, how do you figure that out?
Well, when you go to the market, depending on where you are, it really changes what nutrients, as far as minerals go, that are found in the food. So I love markets. I go to the market all the time. And this is because we can get fresh food. It's grown locally, and it lasts a long time in the fridge, right? So when food's cut from the tree, when it comes from the tree, or when it's harvested from the ground, depending on the vegetable, whatever the vegetable you're getting. It comes from. Yeah. Yep. The moment it's picked, it's got the highest vitamin content. And then just like our bodies uses up nutrients to protect from stressors, so vegetables do as well. So they're constantly exposed to oxygen, so they use up their antioxidants. And they also are sensitive to light and heat, which also deplete like B vitamins. So the longer that you have food stored, the lower vitamin content is found in the food. The minerals don't go anywhere. So the minerals they don't go anywhere.
Right. Okay. Yeah. They're not perishable in that sense.
Yeah. They stick around.
They're just as available on the first day than on the 14th day in the fridge.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But the vitamin goes down.
Yeah.
The second piece is when you're buying stuff from the local market is the mineral levels of the soils.
So does he have a chocolate vein or not?
Yeah, does he have a chocolate vein?
Yeah.
We all want that good stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So, for example, in Australia, where we are right now, we go to the market and we can get some foods, potatoes and leeks or whatever.
Yeah.
We cannot guarantee that it's got adequate amount of selenium here because our soils themselves are deficient in selenium. And this is known even by the government. That's why when they make wholemeal bread here, which a lot of people in the health industry don't eat bread.
Yeah.
So
right.
So that's another problem. But not eat bread. So it's low in selenium. And when you eat the food, you're just not getting adequate amounts of selenium in Australia. Yeah. So what do you got to do? Well, you could either outsource your food and get it from another country, or you can supplement to make sure that you're getting proper selenium. There are some farmers, and I had talked to a couple farmers that supplement their soils with all the minerals.
Yes.
And they're right on it because they realize that they get better quality meats, they get larger harvests, and they're interested. To me, they're cutting edge because they're providing the food that I want.
Yeah.
And I think everyone will actually crave these foods because they taste better.
Yeah, and it probably has also a high resilience against pests in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So because actually that's interesting, right? Like if you eat these types of vegetables or food in general, your body gets replenished. But at the same time, probably they are so healthy, those vegetables themselves, because they had also enough minerals to grow properly, hey?
Yeah, it's this wonderful thing. And it's kind of interesting how a plant needs nutrients to prevent itself from being exposed to pests and things like that. For humans, they're like bacteria and viruses. But there's like a disconnect where they go, oh, well, that helps plants, but not us.
Right. They, meaning science, has not figured that link could be exactly the same as for plants, which makes sense because they're also nature.
We need antibiotics.
Yeah,
so that's how you do it, right?
And just wipe it, rather than resilience. Well, that's really, you take away the pests. So antibiotics for us, for conventional farmers, that's pesticides, fungicides, whatever you have, all of those different things. But really, you could also come from the point of view where we build resilience in the body as we put in the plants, and then actually we don't actually get that yet.
That's it.
So when you talk about selenium, why do we know that we are deficient? Have we actually seen any results of this deficiency? I know, like New Zealand, Australia is one of the lowest in the world, I believe, because their soil just doesn't have it in it, right?
It's just not here. We're not where the chocolate is.
Yeah, no,
or the vanilla ice cream. So really, we've done it not me myself, but scientists have analyzed soils from all around the world, and they've even found that because they've been adding, like, they used to use NPK, in Australia they use NPKs. They add sulfur to it, which is good. But the downside is that it actually, sulfur-based fertilizers actually deplete selenium in the soil again. So it's kind of like you're kind of setting yourself up for not having adequate amounts in the soil, especially here. But all across the world, its selenium content actually has been depleting. And I think it's kind of like the point you were bringing up earlier, where we're just kind of depleting the earth, right? And we're also creating like conditions that are not very conducive to healthy soil, right? So like you have like smog and cars driving around and things like that. And it messes with the microbes and other nature stuff.
I've seen farms directly next to airports quite frequently because people don't want to live there, so you grow food. But that's probably not a good idea, thinking about all the kerosene and heavy metals that would rain onto those plants.
That's it, But of course, having food grown in the sun in soil is ideal when you compare to hydroponics. But even some hydroponic companies are really tuning into the idea that plants may only require 16 minerals, but the human requires more. So they're providing fertilizers to give plants very mineral-rich foods. So at one point where soil-grown stuff was considered ideal, now because the environment is kind of becoming less preferred, but the hydroponics, it's kind of opening up because you can really control the environment and you can get a lot better of a harvest. So it's good for farmers.
Well, that's really cool. So I guess I've seen actually systems that you can put in your own apartment even to grow some of your vegetables yourself. But if you connect all the dots, wouldn't that mean that you basically get an analysis done as you go to the dentist, you get to the hair mineral checker. They check what your deficiencies are, and they adjust then the inputs to your hydroponic growing system, or whoever is growing the food for you. And then you actually get it through normal food rather than through supplements.
That would be ideal.
We should do that. What?
I mean, it would be an idea, absolutely.
I don't know. Am I thinking too simple? Because wouldn't that already solve it?
Well, it would solve the mineral aspect, but you see, when like in Canada, it's not uncommon to have food grown in Mexico, and then it takes at least a week to get up to Canada through shipping, and then by the time you buy it, or it sits in, we don't have Woolworths here, but
one of those supermarket
the grocery
chains,
store, and it sits there for who knows how long. And you buy it right before it goes off, right? And then you put it in your fridge, and then you take it, maybe eat it 2 days from then. The nutrient content's dropping because the vitamin content drops.
Because it's not really 2 days old. It's already 9.
Yeah, you think, I just bought it. Why is it going off?
Yes.
It's because it was grown halfway around the country.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a benefit of the market, and also where, it's a food problem in general, because they grow food, and then some of it even in some cases has higher vitamins, contrary to what people would think. It's got higher vitamins in this day grown, but by the time it makes it to your plate, it's actually lower. So it's kind of like a public health concern in general, and there's some documents on that as well.
Right. So distribution is a big problem then. Because actually we have maybe the answer to many vitamin deficiencies, but it's because the distribution is not properly done. And
that's it. We live in a world of abundance. We have so much, right? It's just, how do we spread this abundance around is where we really disconnect.
There's a book, it's actually called Abundance by Peter Diamandis, and it's amazing to hear him talking about it's a distribution problem and not a problem that we have not enough. And I bet you it's the same with minerals, because the minerals are somewhere, but they're probably washed into the sea, or I don't know, or where else would they actually be? The chocolate veins.
There are some different areas that are very high in minerals. There's a well-known place in Utah which trace mineral research uses, and they make concentrates. We talked about this at a different time, and it's a mineral-based supplement. It's got all the minerals in it, right? There is some aspects, like some veins, really veins, they're huge, right? In size. But They have some really good land-based ones, but the minerals that are found in the ocean are also really good.
Yeah.
There was a researcher, Maynard Murray, that used to use diluted seawater to grow vegetables, and he had really good results.
Fantastic.
So
We need him.
he's
Yeah,
passed,
yeah, yeah.
but-
Oh, bummer.
yeah,
Right.
but you know, his work's still present, and it's still relevant to this day. And I think that people that are really interested in growing their own food, especially at-home gardeners, they should try it. Especially like there's other products you can do now. Like in many shops here, you can get a product called sea salt, right? And it's
What do you mean sea salt? Like salt?
SEASOL,
Okay.
and it's basically like seaweed matter and like fish broth.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
I don't know if you've ever smelled it. It smells like fish, so I know that it's in there. And,
Oh, you're not eating it. That's for your plants.
You give it to your plants,
Right, okay.
and then you'll eat it after.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Oh, they can have it. Yeah, no, that's all right. Yeah, and they will probably appreciate it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Fantastic. So, thinking about that, so I've been exposed to sort of some ideas that maybe not every mineral is actually the same, and maybe that's actually a myth. I haven't looked into it for years, but I know that there's the inorganic calcium and there's the calcium that is in a vegetable. I'm sure that's true for many of those minerals, that there are different types. So do you have to be aware when actually buying minerals what type we're having there? Yeah.
It's an interesting question.
Complex?
Well, it is,
Well,
and
try it.
it's not necessarily one I want to like have the definitive answer on. But I will say that it doesn't matter where your body gets the nutrients. Your body can use it. So even if and even if it's like, for example, calcium that comes from chalk, calcium carbonate, or eggshells or something, your body can still use it. Whether or not it's the easiest on the body to use is a different story.
Okay.
You know, so absorbability may change.
Yeah.
So, that's really what I gotta say about that.
Okay,
The
so
body
yeah,
will
our body is
use it.
smart, so better do something than nothing in that.
Well,
case.
if it needs it,
Yeah.
and it'd rather use calcium of eggshell, for example, or milk than lead, then let's do it, right? And you'd rather have your bone have calcium in it than lead in it as well, because your bone will break a lot easier.
Yeah, right. Yeah, just the thought that comes to mind. You know how when people get older and older, they often they get really brittle bones. So are you suggesting that it might have actually quite a bit to do with our body having used our bones as a reservoir to run the body for so long that it gets brittle?
That's it.
Wow.
That's exactly
Fantastic.
the way I see it.
Oh, that's really insightful. I've never made that connection. I only heard, at one stage the ratio between what is it, calcium and what would be the other one?
Phosphorus?
In the bone would shift, and that makes them so much more brittle.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about that one as if eating a diet high in animal protein, because animal protein's high in phosphorus, then it could imbalance calcium. It's an idea. I don't know if it's necessarily 100% true, but your body loves calcium, I'll tell you that. Many people do need it. And when you talk about healing the bones, you need more than just calcium.
Yeah.
But calcium's the one that kind of always gets said.
Yeah.
You know, 'cause bone's made up of at least 44 different minerals.
Yeah.
So it needs a lot of minerals.
Yeah. Just having a slightly sort of curveball there. So calcification tells me it's something to do with calcium.
Yeah.
Do I want to give my body... Like calcification has also been connected to really degenerative disease, like even cancer sometimes, it creates certain things. So doesn't that suggest we shouldn't have too much? So you were just saying we need a lot. So is there...
It's interesting.
Yeah.
The way I see it, and there's some discussion and even some debate on it, but the way I see it is that the body pulls that calcium out from the bone, and then it doesn't have the cofactors needed to utilize the calcium properly. So it gets put in soft tissues, and it gets put, like when it's going through the blood in excess amounts, it starts to cut up the veins and arteries and things like that. And that's reasons why even cholesterol is, they say, oh, you have high cholesterol or something, and it's bad for your heart. Well, we've kind of gotten to the point where cholesterol, it's not really the demon. You know, and it's the same with the calcium. It's not necessarily the cause of the problem, but it's definitely causing issues when it's out of balance. The truth of it is any mineral out of balance can cause disease.
Yeah.
It's just calcium is one of the major ones. It's been correlated especially with a lot of heart issues and even cancers, like you're saying.
Yeah, right.
When we do a hair test, it's very common to see people, we call them slow oxidizers.
Slow oxidizers.
Slow oxidizer. Oxidation meaning like, or similar to like metabolism, your ability to create energy. And slow oxidizers are people with very high tissue calcium levels.
Okay.
And my first hair test was very high calcium, right? Very similar thing. And it's basically equated with like biological rusting. And some people say, oh, it's a sign of a magnesium deficiency or you need more potassium. I don't take calcium. But I'm in the other camp where I think calcium is an essential nutrient, and I still like to recommend it. Especially in this day that's full of stressors, and the amount of times I've seen people with bone issues themselves or degenerative disc disease, and it just seems to be theoretically people say, oh, you don't take it, but when it comes to practicality and actually what helps people, it seems to be completely different. So yeah, this is my perspective on that.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. So if I go and get my test done and I see that, well, so my test should actually, so it wouldn't actually be calcium that would be the problem. Like your intake is too high or your levels are too high. It's really about, there are other things that make it not possible to utilize it. Like our hot chocolate, if we would only have cacao in the house, we would just, we would not be able to do anything with it. We need the milk, we need other things as well. So at that moment, we really, we feel really abundant having the cacao, but if we have only cacao, then no party anymore, right?
Exactly. And I like to talk about, it's like baking a cake.
Okay.
And where you have the ingredients to make a cake, and you need to have all the ingredients. Don't ask me which ones because I don't make cake very often.
Sure.
But you need to have all of the ingredients at proper amounts depending on how much cake you want to make. And it's not enough just to have the right ingredients. You need to have them in the right ratio with other things. So you can't add too much butter, even though we all love butter. And you can't add too much if you make cacao, if you're going to make chocolate cake, right?
It gets too bitter, yeah.
Yeah, so like it's all a question of balance.
Oh, okay. I get it, yeah. So at the end of the day, do we have to be really knowledgeable about all of this? Because if I think about it, you can spend a lot of time researching this, or one can, and that's, I think you will find a level of truth that and a customized version of that knowledge that really helps your body. And I've seen so many people that have been able to reverse any disease really because they actually got knowledgeable about what they need, but also what really works out there. But, most people only start to think about that when they have really when they really have the need and really the pressure to put a lot of time into it because they're literally dying or that they feel really, really bad. And I get that, but is there an easy way to get there? Like without becoming a scholar in all of that?
If you're not a complete do-it-yourselfer, which I completely recommend, trying to do things yourself within reason. Of course, if you specialize in some other thing, if you're an electrician, you don't have time to learn about nutrition and all the different 60 minerals and 16 vitamins and 20 amino acids and all that stuff, then it's definitely worthwhile to work with someone that does mineral balancing, and especially if they work with the hair tissue mineral analysis.
Great. Yeah, and they do basically a stock take of what have you got there and how much are you actually putting back in. And if they see that some levels are low, then they would recommend you take more of this and there of this, you good there and so on. And then you just monitor it as you go.
Yeah, and it makes things a lot easier because rather than going to the supplement store and going, hey, vitamin C is on sale and I think I need more vitamin D. I read an article on it. Right? You're guessing, you're shotgunning. You're just assuming, hey, I need this, that, this, and maybe I'll just take this whole shelf. Right? Because I don't feel well. It's just guessing. It's better to supplement according to what you absolutely need at your tissue level rather than just guessing.
Yeah. And the reason why the medical profession, mostly hasn't really taken up this approach is probably not because it doesn't work, but because their approach must be very, very different.
It's different in the sense that rather than recommending pharmaceuticals, or rather than recommending surgery and things like that, we use nutrients. It's quite scientific. Cells need nutrients to function. So we use nutrients to help the cell function. And the bigger picture of things is, as I said before, we're made up of cells. So as far as overall why doctors aren't using it, part of the problem is that they're just not educated in the area of nutrition and even the efficacy of micronutrients in general. Some of them have heard vitamin C, and most like cardiologists, for example, take vitamin E just because they heard it's good for the heart, but they don't even know themselves. They just like, I heard it was good, and I just want to make sure I'm okay.
Because I think it's really important to put that out there, that there is a lot of research about all that stuff, but that doesn't mean that your doctor that is in your town that you go to has been exposed to that research, because it's quite a long path between research that gets validated and is validated, and that's what you're talking about, gets into the medical training and becomes that important, then people actually learn that. And, I think I love the medical profession, and there's a lot about it that is really, really awesome. But if you think about the knowledge that you actually have to hold to completely fix a body that is broken, understand every little part, there's a lot of knowledge that you have to hold and to read. And I guess it's just another topic.
Yeah.
I guess on the flip side, it's one of the most important ones really to actually not even get sick, right? So it's unfortunate. It really should
There's
have
always two camps. There's some people that are sick that just need to get better.
Yeah.
And there's other people that don't really have health conditions, but they want to experience their optimum. When it comes to overall nutrition, they just don't understand. It's not part of what they do. I'm in the kind of perspective that it takes a community to heal someone.
Okay.
And I think that a lot of medical doctors should follow that as well, and that they may be the gateway to healthcare, but they don't have all of the means or the time to even help them, and that there's always extras needed. And that's why integrative medicine is becoming a big thing.
Cool. That makes a lot of sense. Hey, there are three questions that we normally ask people on the show, and one is probably is always related to the topic that we're talking about. So if people say, all right, this makes a lot of sense to me, what would be the next 3 steps that you would recommend people to do? What are the ones that you normally recommend people to do? I would recommend that they should talk to you, of course, as well. But what would be sort of your go-to answers? If you don't do anything else, these 3 things would really work.
If you don't do anything else, and you don't want to get a hair test, and you just want to make sure you're getting your supplements. We still call that shotgunning. You're guessing at the end of the day. But if you're going to do that, you want to make sure you're at least taking a multivitamin that doesn't have iron in it.
Okay.
And I prefer also if it doesn't have copper in it. And I would also consider taking extra zinc, because it just seems that many people, whether they're following a plant-based diet or just environmental factors, are just increasing our needs for this nutrient. I would definitely consider that. Eat a diet that's very high in plants, because you need to get your potassium intake. Not to say that don't eat meat, but you still need meat. But make sure you're getting your potassium, because it's one of those things that you can't supplement with. It's just, you need a whole bottle every day to do it. So get it from your diet. And that's the one where if you're going to take a supplement, you can, but you got to take that diet as well.
Right.
They don't make up for health.
It's surprising, hey, because I thought supplementation is often much more concentrated, but that's not always so, hey?
Depending on the nutrient.
Okay.
Because there's legality reasons they can't sell potassium at any higher than 99 milligrams. And you need 4.5 grams. So you'd literally be taking a bottle a day if you were just to try and make sure you're getting that. And that's just the RDA, which is the bare minimum that you're supposed to be taking.
Not the optimum, probably.
It's not optimum. No. The Stone Age human or the Paleolithic human was eating about 11,000 milligrams.
Right.
It's almost double.
And they made it. They made it. Well, we're still here, so that was a good thing to do.
They were doing something right. Apparently.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Hey, if you think about the 3 things that get you out of bed every morning, that really inspire you, what would that be?
First one would be teaching people and helping people balance their mineral levels, because that's one of my passions.
Great.
The second one would be that, we live in paradise. Let's enjoy it. Right? Like, come on. And the third one would be that rather than degenerating and having an average lifespan of like 80 years, we can try and push that up there. So those are the 3. If I did a bonus one, it'd be that if you have heavy metal toxicity, you don't need to. You just got to be properly nourished. And it's very simple. You just got to give the body the right things, and it will do miraculous things. So those are the 3 things.
Awesome. Last question. Why do you think we're here?
Why do you think we're here? You mean as like a human species?
Yeah. Like, well, why do we exist?
Why do we exist?
Yeah, I mean, what was that idea about?
I don't have any definitive answer,
sure.
But I believe that we're here to develop and improve our relationship with each other. And I think that the more that we communicate with people, the more that we help people, the more that we help ourselves, and the more that we can relate with ourselves. And I think that's what it's all about. I think we help the creator or something become a better creator.
Yeah.
And he does that through us. And he needs us to take part in that.
Love it. Thanks for that.
Yeah,
it was a little bit off topic, but I thought I might as well throw that at you. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming and spending your time with us. I hope we will see you again. I think there is much more to talk about.
Absolutely.
But, yeah, definitely. And if people want to find more out about you, John, it's johnbumpus.com.
That's it. You can just Google me, or you can
you're
type
right
it
on the
in
top
there.
Yeah, fantastic.
The one not the one and only, but the only one that does minerals with my name.
Brilliant.
So,
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me, Sebastian.
Awesome.